Good evening. My name is Jerome Bande, Director of the East County Regional Office. We would like to say welcome to the Montgomery County FY27 CIP East County Community Conversations with the County Executive. And we thank you, the County Executive, government representatives, our community stakeholders, and members of the East County community in general for coming. And special thanks to the Department of Recreation, Robin and her team for hosting us. And this is one of the many sessions we continue to have in this beautiful facility. We really look forward to a very engaging evening with you. Just a couple of housekeeping items. The restrooms are just right outside in the hallways, and obviously, just in case of an emergency, which we don't hope for, there are signs, around to, to my left side of the building, and the exits along the hallway. We do encourage you to also take time to visit the resource tables in there for some very valuable government and community information and resources that are available to residents of Montgomery County. To get us started, I would like to call on now the Chair of the East County Citizens Advisory Board, Mr. Peter Miokin, to provide a very brief opening remarks. Peter?
Thank you, Drew. Again, my name is Peter Miokin. I'm chair of the East County Citizens Advisory Board. I'm basically helping Drew open this meeting up, the CIP meeting. And what's going to happen is, I guess, the budget analyst is going to speak first, which is Derek Harrigan, and then I assume it's Mr. Elrich who's going to speak next. So that's about all I'm going to do because Drew took all my thunder. So, so anyway, Derek, you're on. Would you like your water back?
No, that was for you. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody? Good. You can do better than that. Come on now. We're doing great. Okay. All right. Derek Harrigan with the Office of Management and Budget. It's good to be here with you this evening. So tonight, I'll highlight some basics about the county's capital budget, ways that you can provide feedback, how you can participate. Later this evening, you'll hear from the county executive on the fiscal outlook of the county, and following the CE's presentation, we'll have breakout sessions. So tonight is the last of 6 in-person meetings across the county. Tomorrow's presentation will be virtual, May 6th. So you could have been anywhere this evening, having a drink. I'm talking about myself. Making dinner, reading a nice book. I recommend Ta-Nehisi Coates' The Water Dancer. But you're here, so thank you. We appreciate that. I know the county executive appreciates that. At the end of the day, this is your community. Your input is important and it matters. So let's get in some basic about the capital budget. 2 budgets, the operating budget, which supports programs and services like education, public safety, health and human services, transportation, etc. And then the capital budget, which is our focus tonight, which supports facilities and the construction of those facilities. For example, the rec center that we're sitting in tonight was once a capital budget project. So you might say, what's included in the capital program? Well, large, long-term projects with a 6-year budget plan, which includes planning, design, construction, and finally project completion. The development of the CIP follows a biennial cycle, whereas in a full cycle, the odd-numbered years, the county considers new projects and amendments to existing projects. And in even-numbered years, projects that meet amendment criteria only. So projects are programmed over 6 years, and we do that because of the complexity of those projects. It takes time, resources, and again, those are planned over a 6-year period. Within projects, those projects usually have the most capacity in terms of resources or appropriation in the last 2 years of those projects. Your feedback this evening is being solicited for the FY27 through 32 capital budget program. So again, thank you for participating. Everybody asks, where the money at? Here it is. Looking at the screen of the pie chart here, you'll see that MCPS, or schools rather, represents 37% of the of resources, followed by transportation at 30%, and then the following or final 30% is all other things the county has to fund: libraries, rec centers, fire stations, you name it, it's in there. So when you need to replace a fence or a roof at your home, you do that based on your priorities. How much money do you have in the bank? What else do you have to pay for this month? The county executive takes a similar approach, and he allocates or appropriates funds based on the priorities that you see on the screen. To highlight a couple of the CE's priorities, affordable housing has been a major priority, followed by schools, which I'm a proud product of. Saw one of my classmates outside who works at the rec this evening. And transportation, particularly the launch of the bus rapid transit. John Stuart Mill once said, "Any participation in the smallest public function is useful." The county executive encouraged you to continue participating with the county through forums, public hearings, advisory boards, or direct feedback. Direct feedback includes emails and letters. And as you're out and about, please give our colleagues over at MC 311 a call when you notice infrastructure needs throughout the county. A couple notes about schools. So while school construction represents a very large portion of the capital budget investment, the elected school board prioritizes individual school projects. So you might say, well, what's the process? Well, the board reviews the superintendent's recommendations and submits a proposed budget to the county executive. And then the CE, or county executive, recommends what's affordable. But ladies and gentlemen, he is not recommending individual projects. It's just the affordability. To share your input on schools or any other outside agencies, contact those agencies directly, and we made it easy for you tonight. It's on that QR code that we provided on your seats. Lastly, your feedback will be shared with the departments this spring for consideration in fall submissions. OMB reviews capital requests starting this September. The county executive meets with departments from October to December, then submits a recommended budget to the council in January. Budget amendments are reviewed from March to April. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for OMB. Please welcome to the podium, Mark Elridge.
Thank you. This is my favorite toy. I was sitting here bouncing light off different objects, but I'll be bouncing it off here. So we're going to talk about how the capital and operating budgets are related. They're taken up separately. So the council got the capital budget earlier in the spring, and we sent over the operating budget to the council on March 14th. In FY25, more than $225 million in cash from the operating budget supports capital projects. And that's schools and recreation centers and, capital improvements to roadways or sidewalks, all those little things you look for all sit in the capital budget. And we have to, in operating, we have to account for the cost to operate a new expanded facility. So if we build something new, we have to plan in the year that we open it, how many people are going to work there. So the cost that we talk about for a long time is just the building, and then there are these additional costs that come along when we have to staff it. And then we have service our debt service, and the county puts a lot of money into debt service, but that's because we build a lot of projects. And when Ike was county executive and interest rates were really low, and we were way behind on schools, he took advantage of that time to build more schools than we normally would have built to try to catch up on the backlog. We have a large backlog. We are not even close to where the schools need to be in terms of construction. So the debt service is the price you paid in order to do things. And it's a lot of money, but at least, everybody needs to understand that the only purpose is to fund things that are capital projects. You can't use debt service for operating. So I cannot borrow any money in the budget to pay for operating expenses of the county. That would be not a good practice. And this shows you the commitments that the county already makes in the budget. And you can get an idea what the priorities are. MCPS and Montgomery College over here, they're taking about 55% of the budget, and that's $2.527 million. And then public safety gets another $809 million. That's corrections, it's police and fire and homeland security. The rest of the budget, everything else we do, gets $586 million. That's libraries, that's rec centers, it's the golf courses are self-sustaining. It's HHS, which is the biggest chunk of that money. HHS is more than half of that money up there. It's anything we do environmental. All those things come out of the rest of the budget piece. Then debt service is $438 million. Pensions are 206. These are for employee benefits and pensions. We provide retiree health care, and we also obviously provide pensions for retirement. And PAYGO is this little sliver here, and that's the 10% of the capital budget we're supposed to use cash for. And that's, so we wind up every year, we're bonding about $280 million in capital projects. Next. So the capital budget has real challenges. We have aging infrastructure, and no place is that truer than with the stormwater facilities in the county. They were built for a different climate. They were built for neighborhoods and areas that weren't developed as intensively. We know we have more flooding than we've ever had before, and we have bigger storms than we've had before. So we've hired a hydrologist team to actually map out all the watersheds in Montgomery County so we can figure out where the flooding is, where it begins, and then what are we going to have to do to mitigate it. One of the things, it seems easy. You see a manhole cover and it's the water's spilling out to the street. Nothing's going down the drain, and you think that's the problem. But you could find out that the problem's either upstream of you, because too much water is going down too fast, overwhelms the system, or it's downstream where there's a blockage farther down. So we do that kind of work to figure this out, but we know this is going to be one of the most expensive things the county's going to have to deal with when this is done, because if you're dealing with any of the big pipes, that means tearing up the street to put in larger pipes in the street. That will not be cheap. Or you could do what Arlington did, where they were trying to collect the water from storms and keep it out of some of it out of the pipes and some of it from creating flooding. And so they built a swimming pool underneath a field, I think a football field or a soccer field at one of the schools. And it's not really a swimming pool because you don't want to swim in this stuff, but it's deep enough and wide enough to hold enough water so they can put it in there to keep the street from flooding and then let it out slowly after the rainstorm is over with. And that's the kind of thing we're going to have to be looking at some point, and that is not cheap. So that's one of the issues with aging infrastructure. Also, we've got libraries that still have not been refreshed yet. We have rec centers, fortunately not many anymore that are in bad shape. When County Executive Leggett first came in, he targeted catching up on all the rec centers in the black community that had not ever been fixed while they were building really fancy rec centers on the west side of the county. And so he just flipped the priority and said, we're going to do these first. And he got to all the really bad rec centers, and we're continuing to make sure we're more equitable about what we do. We have expanded facilities just because of the population change. The people in Burtonsville are still waiting for a library. Burtonsville has been open for, not Burtonsville, in the north, Clarksburg. They're still waiting for a library. They're getting the library's in the budget now. But they waited a long time. That community was built 15, 20 years ago, something like that. So they waited a long time to get something that should have come with the community. And we have community expectations. People want parks fixed. They want more equipment in the parks. They want modern playground equipment instead of what's in the parks right now. So there's a lot of pressure to do all these other things. We know about inflation. It's still a problem. It's been a problem for a few years. It's not like it was when Ike was executive and we were looking at 2% inflation. We're still looking at 3, 4, 5% inflation. And construction materials often are going up faster than that. And then there's the president's tariffs, which are going to make a mess out of everything, including our budget for capital projects. Federal funding is uncertain. We're already seeing programs killed. Anything that's environmental is dead. Anything you do, and if you mention any kind of social purpose, they consider climate change being woke. And so if you talk about any of your programs, they're all being cut off from the feds. So we're looking to have a drought in federal money for some time, and that'll mean we have to slow things down because the county doesn't have the resources to fill what the feds are going to be cutting. So things we're waiting for federal money for are going to wind up waiting. Some of our revenues are volatile, impact taxes and recordation taxes. Impact taxes are what developers pay when they build a new development. It's for schools and transportation. And recordation taxes are when you record a deed after you sell a piece of property. So because housing has been down, these have been down. But impact taxes are especially down because this council and the past council continue to lower the impact taxes on developers. And every time they lower it, that's less money that goes into the budget to pay for the things we need, which means we either delay projects or we have to do things like raise taxes because we are seriously reducing the amount of money that developers have to pay. In an act of extraordinary, I don't know what the right word is for it, but the other day the council overrode my veto. They had introduced a bill, Andrew Friedson and Natalie Fonda-Gonzalez introduced a bill that if a developer or not, a building owner has a building that's half vacant, if they empty it out, which means evicting half your tenants, which you're not supposed to want to do if they're businesses, and they convert it to housing, they will pay no property taxes for 20 years. No property taxes. There was no study done whether anybody needed a subsidy in order to do this. In fact, we showed them 3 buildings in Silver Spring that have already gone through the conversion. These guys never asked for a dime. And one of them is a building that was 5 stories, now it's 11 stories. They're finishing up, it's going to be luxury housing. They didn't ask for any money. There are projects that people submitted to Park and Planning. You won't submit a project to Park and Planning if you don't think it's profitable to build that project. The council completely ignored that and decided the good idea would be to give away money. That's going to cost us millions of dollars a year. So when you hear them gnashing their teeth about the budget and, oh my God, we're going to have to cut social services, they apparently had no problem giving developers money. And this is not the time we should be doing that. I actually don't think there's any time we should be doing something of that magnitude. We certainly shouldn't be doing it now. And then we have general obligation debt limits. We just cannot have an unlimited amount of debt. So we try to keep the debt within the limitations, and that constrains how much we can borrow. I will also add, one of my favorite slides. Go there. So back in 2009, we were spending about $300 million a year on capital projects. If that had kept up with inflation, we'd be spending $500 million a year just to build the same things we built in 2009. If you go more recently and look at when the recession hit us, that's right about there. You can see the counties actually reduced the amount of money they're putting in. This gap is the gap between wishful thinking and that's the real world. So we build less and less because the stuff we build is more and more expensive. If I put a library into the budget in this year, let's say, when it gets built, the library costs 3 or 4 years of inflation added on to the cost of the library. This is what the council's done. They've flattened out the money at $280 million a year. When I was on the council, we peaked at about $340 million a year. So we're now spending $60 million less a year to build infrastructure that people in this county need. And that's over 6 years, that's $360 million that we didn't build. And just for a comparison, because I love to hear people talk about Virginia, Fairfax County's 5-year CIP is $2 billion, $400 million a year, and that's us, 280. So if you wonder how Virginia gets things that we don't have, they build more, they invest more, and their taxes on commercial property are way higher than ours. In Fairfax County, if you're in Tyson's Corner and you're building one of those wonderful projects that everybody's going to, they're paying $1.54 in property taxes. If you build the same building here in Montgomery County, you're paying $1.05 in property taxes. $1.04 this year, $1.05 if my proposal, well, actually I dropped doing a property tax proposal, I switched income. But that gives you an idea of how much more they get from the commercial sector compared to us and what they're able to do with the money they get, which is invested in things that bring businesses there. And Montgomery County is starving for money and cannot make those investments on the amount of money that's left over in our budget. So I've been trying to push things forward to be more realistic about what we have to do if we're going to be competitive. And I'm a big believer that most of the load ought to be put on commercial property, which actually are the people who really benefit from the development. As homeowners have reminded me more than once, you might build something that increases the value of my house, doesn't change my income, and it just means I have a higher property tax bill. And then when I'm either dead or I sell my house, I might see some benefit. But the guys who get these buildings built for them, they get money the day they build the building. And they collect income for years and years and years. So it makes sense, and that's what Virginia does. Their taxes in every county in Virginia are higher on commercial property than they are in residential property. We tried to get a bill tax this year, passed this year. We were looking at tax restructuring. And Montgomery County's tax structure is based on residential development. There are almost no jobs in Montgomery County. I moved to Montgomery County from DC in 1960. Silver Spring was the only significant place in Montgomery County. It was bigger than Bethesda, and there was no Wheaton Plaza. And Georgia Avenue was like 4 lanes, and then dwindling down to 2 lanes. The Up County had not been developed at all. It was just Silver Spring, and that's 1960. We're not that place anymore. So we've got housing developments all over the place. We've got need for additional roads, needs for all the other infrastructure that comes with it. When you move into a neighborhood, you want the parks and you want the things that make the neighborhood livable. And those are the things we need to build, and we are just not able to keep up. So Virginia, they made a change in 2012. They went to a Republican legislature and a Republican governor and got the authority to tax commercial property in the Northern Virginia counties so they could build infrastructure. And the developers in Virginia went with them to lobby to get these bills passed because they knew if they had infrastructure that they would actually be able to build out Tyson's Corner the way the master plan called for it. And Bob McDonnell, who's a Republican governor back then, writes an op-ed after the bill passes talking about everything that's going to happen to Tyson's Corner. And if you read his op-ed, Everything he said would happen to Tyson's Corner happened to Tyson's Corner, despite the fact that we've got this model across the silly little river. Nobody on this side of the river is willing to look at that model as something Montgomery County should do. And it's just wrong, because if you can't build infrastructure, you are not moving forward. And if your competitors build world-class infrastructure and you try to make do with what we've got in Montgomery County right now, we're not competitive. They just announced a new BRT program on the other side of the river. We've had a BRT in our proposals for like over 12 years. There's been no money to fund it. That's why you don't see a single inch of real BRT in Montgomery County. And Virginia's already started doing that. So we can continue to look at Virginia and envy them, or you can figure out, why don't we do what they're doing and get the money and resources we need to do the kind of development work we need to do. And so my solution this year, when the legislature changed the tax structure, we are allowed to go up to 3.3% on income taxes. We were at 3.2%. Just to let you know what it means for you, because we have a $60 tax credit in there. So it buffers the hit a little bit. But if you were making $100,000, it would cost you $100 a year. If you're making $200,000, this is your adjusted income, not your gross income. After you deduct for the minimum, either what's it called, when you're itemizing your deductions, or you take the minimum deduction for the state, after you deduct all the taxes you pay, that what's left over, and after you take out your charitable giving, is your adjusted gross income. And that's what's taxed. So a person who makes $125,000 and has a house is likely to be paying tax on $120,000, or no, about $100,000. But the point is, it's $100 per every $100,000 in your income. I don't know how many of you are making $200,000 a year after deductions. Most people I know aren't. Most people in the county aren't. So it's not much of a hit on people like that. If you make $1 million, it's $1,000 a year in additional taxes. That lets us fully fund the schools, which we're struggling to fund. It maintains the social services, which the council is saying they're going to have to cut. They're still talking about not funding the schools fully, and they're fussing over a penny. And I don't believe, honestly, for most people, that penny's going to make much of a difference to any of you in terms of whether you're going to be able to stay in your house or not. $100 or a couple $100 just doesn't make it. And if we're not able to provide the services you want, you're probably going to be more unhappy about that. And if you've got kids in schools and they can't deal with the special education problem, you're probably not going to be very happy about that. This is Montgomery County stacked up against everybody else, and this is only if my tax proposal had passed, but it didn't. So this is down about 2 cents. But this is, Montgomery's at $1.06. That we would be at $1.06. Frederick's at $1.11. Commercial and residential. Fairfax County, the residents are at $1.17. And commercial property is at $1.29, almost $1.30. That's for anything in any piece of commercial property pays $1.29. If you're in Tyson's Corner or any of the other taxing districts, you pay up to $1.54, which is 50% higher than Montgomery County's property tax. If you're in Howard County, you're a resident, you're thinking, if I raise taxes to $1.06, you're going to think about Howard County, or you'd be paying $1.33 if you go to Howard County. You could go to Prince George's County, you'd pay $1.37. You could go to the district, and you could pay 85 cents. Why is the district lower than everybody else? The answer's in the graph. That. If you're in the District of Columbia, commercial property worth more than $10 million, which is almost every piece of property in DC, is paying $1.89. That would be like 85 cents more than they pay in Montgomery County. If the building's worth between $5 and $10 million, you're paying $1.77. If it's worth between $2 million and $5 million you're paying $1.65. So with taxes like that, they're able to bring the residential tax rates down. But everybody up here has higher residential rates than we do, higher commercial rate, and the Virginia counties, we didn't show Alexandria and Arlington, but they have a higher rate. They all have 12.5 cents above the base rate on their property taxes for commercial property, and that's just for starters. So this is the least you would pay in Fairfax County if you were a commercial property, the least you would pay. So we're competing against people who are well-armed and have a lot of money. And so if you want different results, we're not going to get those results if we don't figure out a way to do things differently here. And since we have such a nice model across the street, we ought to borrow from what they're doing. This is a time for you guys' breakout sessions. I can take a couple of questions really quickly if anybody has a question. But then you guys are going to be on your own to talk about what you want to do. The big thing for us is we moved these budget forms forward, because if I do them in the fall, our folks are already at work on the capital budget. And we realized, kind of like we did with the operating budget used to come after the county executive submitted his budget. We moved our operating budget forms in front of, before the executive submits his operating budget. Now we're doing the same thing. Well, we're moving this even farther back so our people have time to work on it and not try to do all the budgets in the fall. So please ask questions, give people your feedback about what you'd like to see. This is your opportunity to have some input where we're going. And I will leave this to you. And I have to go to another meeting tonight.
Thank you.
But thank you all.
Let's give him a round of applause.
Did anybody want to ask me something before I tread off?
Yeah, we could entertain a couple of questions. Ask now or hold your peace forever.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mark. Well, before we proceed, okay, just a couple of protocols. Since we started, we have some key folks who, if you don't mind, I would like to recognize. We have with us here District 5 Council Member Christine Mink, who just joined us, so we'd like to say welcome to you. We have Delegate Janelle Wilkins, District 20 State Representatives. We're in her district. But I also would like to recognize folks who are so important to us because they control what? The money. We have the Director of OMB, Jenny Bryant, in the back there. Can we have the other OMB staff just stand up so we recognize them? Because they've been so kind to us and very, very helpful in the operating budget as well as the CIP. Thank you and welcome to East County. We also do have our Director of Recreation, my buddy. Are you there? Robin Riley. She's out there. And Mary Anderson, the Acting Director of the PIO, Public Information Office. So I hope I recognize the department directors. So thank you. Now, the next step, which I think is the fun part of this meeting. And again, thanks for your patience. We have designed.
If we weren't able to regulate dangerous substances, and if we didn't know about